So moving on to page 6.
One of the items you'll see on page 6, which several of you asked, was about snow removal. Is we don't receive all of the bills right away after a snowstorm, and obviously we didn't have much of a snowy year this year, but the number that's in there is essentially what the average has been over the last 5 years. So if the snow returns to the dollar amounts we've had, then it'll be around that number.
Great.
And the same thing with salt, sand, and calcium, same deal.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, the snow removal for the condos is less than half of what we budgeted. Mayor suggested we budget the same amount again, but as Jeff indicated to me, that, you know, they again haven't submitted those bills yet from 2016, so that's why it's not showing as spent.
Yeah, another question. We have a recycling salary? Is that?
There's some historical information. Is that the budget, it was set, the way this budget is set up by the state. A number of years ago, I couldn't tell you, it's probably been 20 years, recycling was outside a cap. So every town set up their public works, streets and roads budget, and they set up a recycling budget, and they basically assigned 1 or 2 of their public works employees under recycling. So we've never changed that. It's 2 employees are charged out of that. It's no longer outside a cap, so it really doesn't matter, but it's kind of where it historically started, and we don't really have a reason to change it. We're afraid that when we change those things, usually you guys start asking questions about how come that went away and that increased. So we've just left it where it is. But it's two public works.
The state takes it, and it's out of cap again.
Yeah.
And we need it.
And Jeff, when you look at the figure of a request in 2016 for 150, and then they only spent 130, is that because there wasn't that much overtime? Is that why?
A little bit of overtime, and if you'll recall, our 2016 and 2017 haven't received their increases. It's going to be a retro. So there's going to be a retro that's going to apply to that. That's going to be charged against the back year.
Okay.
The contract hasn't been ratified. Well, hasn't really gotten done.
Do contracts ever come in?
They used to, without going into too much detail in public session, is the CWA never seems to ratify or go and solve their contracts until after the police are done. They want to see what the police get. So the police are a little bit slow in terms of getting it done. And
That's everything. Okay.
generally, yes. The answer to your question is yes, they don't get done in time.
All right, so that's page 6. Page 7.
I'll point out one of the things in page 7 that you'll probably all, municipal service agreement to apartment collection. One of the apartment complexes has only submitted 1/2 of the year. The entire half of the year still has to be submitted. They're always late. I'm not sure. One usually is pretty quick, and the other is a little bit slow.
And we have indicated the cost of collection. We're hoping that number, that's the collection number, right? That's the original contract. That's not tipping fees.
That's essentially the contract, so yeah.
Right, that will change. Some new equipment for the parks. Again, the dog registration, the animal fees.
Yeah, we can probably drop that somewhat. What takes place is that the dog licenses themselves is a dog trust. They're supposed to pay for all of the costs that are associated with animal control, and they don't. So usually what the CFO does is charge against that first to utilize those funds, then here. And we just double checked, because we put this together before you went. We just double checked. It probably could be cut $6,000 or $7,000. It looks like we're going to need $14,000 or $15,000 in for next year. but we won't need the full 21. As over time, actually, that animal control cost has been coming down from where we had it 3 or 4 years ago.
To the wild chickens running around.
So you're gonna, that's gonna change?
Yeah, we can reduce that,
Should we take 5,000 off of that?
5,000
number?
to do it.
A nice round number.
Because actually, what would be left is the amount of the contract, but then beyond the contract, there's additional, when they pick up an injured dog, there's other fees and late night call outs, so that should be sufficient between that and the actual trust fund.
Okay.
Let me see, oh, I'm sorry.
Anybody else on 7? Moving to page 8.
Last year, we had some prior year bills, this year we don't have any prior year bills, so that's why those are all zeros.
Love that. I didn't see anything on this that was, again, other than the gas and diesel, which is, again,
They only, Riverside has only actually billed us for the first quarter of the year. It takes them quite a while to catch up.
on page 9. Actually, so the landfill is the one that we're hoping our new trash program will help. If it goes as historically it has in other towns, it'll remain to be seen if we have any, and if so, how much the savings might be. Could be considerable if what some of the other towns have realized happened for us. So that's kind of a, let's hope that the numbers that other towns have experienced are the numbers that we experience.
Yeah, another question about that, does that include what Jerry allotted for if we have to take the leaves? Is
It's
that
in another line item.
Okay. I didn't know if that was, thank you.
Have we passed that line item, that other line item? So while you're looking, just as a refresher to council, every grant that we've ever received, I think, is on page 9 and 10. And they stay in as line items just because they stay in, Jeff? Some of them are obviously repeats, but they have to be reported, I guess, as zeros once they're done the first time.
What the deal is, most of those grants they're not certified when we do the budget. So if the state doesn't certify in black and white that this money, this dollar amount's coming to you, you can't put it in the budget. They'll come in during the course of the year, we'll display it as we do a chapter 159. I think all of you guys have probably seen one at one time where we get a dollar amount from a grant, and we chapter 159 it, so we have to show in the budget. In some years, we have those numbers before we start the budget. In other years, the state doesn't certify them. So that's why they all show, because we don't know year to year which ones are going to be done early enough. I think it's in the public buildings and grounds. I thought it was in the earlier, I'm sorry, I'm looking for your composting issue.
Right, and just to get us up to speed,
We have been able to take our composted leaves the county has actually picked them up and wanted them. They used them for composting over near their sites at the landfill, and they no longer want them. The cost of transporting them is going to be about $50,000.
That's why I'm questioning that, $50,000.
where are you looking for?
This is in the.
It's in the request, and
It's
it
in
was
the
in here
request,
earlier, but
and
I
I
didn't see it in
circled that
here,
with-
so I'm going to have to make sure.
Streets and roads, it's under streets and roads.
Where's that at?
But it's correct, he has someone who's gonna pick it, right? He found a farmer who's gonna, that's just as a contingency.
Oh, yeah, it's up at the top of page 7. It goes from 2050 to 2000. I know I put it in there.
But with Jeff, he has someone who's gonna take it currently, but.
He doesn't have it in writing though.
Okay,
He's
yeah,
got
so-
he's got a farm in Morristown that takes another town's recycled leaves too. And that's what a lot of towns do.
You still want to budget and have.
No,
it.
yeah, I just remember talking to him about it.
We've got a place right now that'll take it, but we have to transport it. Now, all the cost is in transportation, or most of the cost is in transportation. So that's why that big number is in there. We're looking around for some other avenues, but most of the towns either have a farmer that wants them, things along those lines, don't have as many leaves. We have a significant number of leaves that get composted, but essentially it's going to take, from a 0 to 50 in 1 year.
Wow,
Just it's
I
crazy.
said, oh, maybe it's $5,000, maybe they made it add another zero here, and that's why I circled it, I was like,
So the leaves that when they get put, wherever they get put, I'm assuming, is that backed by Junior Marksman?
I mean, where we compost them,
Compost them.
Taylor's Lane off.
And they don't disintegrate completely?
They get significantly, smaller in terms of volume, but no, they don't completely
Right,
disintegrate.
and then we have to get rid of that, or else we have to,
We have to get them off the site, DEP requires us to remove them every year. So whatever we bring in during the course of 1 year has to be worked
Thanks, DEP.
for the composting and then taken off by the next year. Because our DEP permit only allows so much volume out there.
And they fund that for us, right?
Uh,
Big facetious.
I think getting that compost site, with another historical story, we had composted there, or they had composted before I came, and we probably did another 20 years before they came in and said that you can't compost on that site because it's Green Acres, even though they had a letter written from DEP that says, we recognize this is Green Acres and you can compost there. Green Acres came in and said that's a diversion of Green Acres property, and made us, what we essentially ended up having to do was buy the acreage from the school that's in front of the water, or from the swim club, WJ Swim Club. We had to buy that to replace those acres that are used for composting. And it's only essentially a lease from DEP allowing us to do it. It's not, it can't be permanent. They won't ever say you can do that there permanently, but you can do it. So, and that ended up costing almost $200,000 to do that.
To buy the land? Okay, so those take us through page 10. Next is obviously page 11, and we have our court and our financing and debt service. I didn't see anything out of line.
Debt service is going up quite a bit this year. The bigger dollar amount is we're probably going to, when we go to put this down on the document, take a look and come back and touch base with you one more time to see whether or not we want to buy down some of the notes and get rid of some of the temporary notes. And then in the next year, we're going to have to go to permanent financing on the notes that are out there. We have almost $10 million out in notes. At the same time, you have a significant bond that's going to be paid off at the end of 2000. It gets reduced significantly in 18 and gets paid off at the end of 19. And we're trying to dovetail those as closely as we can as the new stuff gets put on, as the old stuff goes off. It's basically $1.2 million or so coming off. And it's one of the other reasons that we're probably going to have to use some of your surplus in order to gap those couple of years till we get to where that dovetails complete.
And that was the point of building up the surplus, was to make sure we would get past that hump.
And the bottom, reserve fund collected taxes, and I have to do this every year until we get an estimate. I think I explained this last week, but I'll do it again. Is that reserve fund collected taxes is basically calculating what the school budget, county budget, fire district budget, our own budget is, and then assigning a number to it based on the amount of collections we anticipate getting. There's usually a gap between what we anticipate and what we actually get. That's part of the money that goes into surplus. But we put a placeholder, we just put in last year's number for now as a placeholder until we can come up with, we find out what those numbers are going to be from the other entities.
Number two, I'm sorry?
Spend the next month with those are all the rules.
Yeah. So moving on to page 14, we're now at sewer budget.
The one thing, by way of an explanation, is we had a significant number of people out at one time last year, and we ended up having to pay a lot of overtime until they returned, and that's part of the increase that took place in terms of the jump. If you'll recall, mid-year, we added a man to try to, we were to the point where we really didn't have enough manpower out there, so we added a man. We anticipate after this year that we're going to have 2 people retire, so that number can come down next year, if you wish.
Okay.
How would that affect everything?
Pardon me?
How would that affect everything? We're all work at the same time.
Coverage for the weekends is the most difficult time. There wasn't enough hours to cover all the hours. They take time off during the week to so that we don't pay overtime on the weekend. If there's a number of men that are out, there's not enough men to cover all the week, so then on the weekend you're paying overtime constantly. We were down at one point to really 4 workers. Yeah. Between injuries and illnesses. We're back to all one. Most of the other items on sewer didn't change significantly. We paid off some of their notes, so that the only thing we have, the only debt service we have is the NJEIT loan that we took a couple years ago.
Jeff, in that budget, the sludge disposal, it looks like we're going to have a significant increase, relatively speaking. Is there
It's
more sludge?
it's the issue
More
of
people, more...
the one item that's not removing the water that we're looking to improve in the capital. And so, yes, we have more sludge as a result of it. It's heavier, it has more water in it. It's supposed to be going out fairly dry, and it's not. And
Is that something to do with the
yeah,
we still use it belt press?
it's in the package back here. Jeff left.
Was in his explanation?
Yeah.
I remember we went through it, yeah.
Yeah, I read it, I just can't remember what it said. What's that on there? Sewer department?
You remember, which one was it? You know, what's the, what are you referring to here? That's in this area right here.
It was the sludge removal. It's not so much the number, I see the number, sludge disposal removal is is a bit higher. But I was just wondering if we knew why it was wetter leaving the plant.
Yeah, because one of the pieces of equipment that you're asking to be replaced isn't working properly.
So that's fair enough. I mean,
Once,
At the rear.
Where is
What is
the
it?
write-up?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find this explanation.
Right, I'm trying to find it too.
It does provide the backup on the other one. Let's see what we can- I can get that for you.
We all read it, that's the scary part.
Yeah.
There's just so much.
He's got so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
I'll get that for you.
Okay. Yeah, just, you know, an explanation of why, and that's part of what we're hoping to address.
We should do put my capital budget in here. All those write-ups.
You need a, like, a memo to us, or a memo
Yeah,
to the budget request?
see it, maybe.
All right, well, you know, I'll be satisfied if you get it to us.
Yeah.
No worries.
And that's the same thing with the water line item as well, that jumped significantly because of the system, that they want us to improve from.
Partially, he's saying the water, yes.
Because we have to use more city instead of using
Yes.
what we have, okay. Because that significantly jumped from the year previous.
Different capital, it's all spelled out, all rolled out. When we did that with him, did he just bring one copy of that, didn't he? Of each of these,
No, he just explained it, that because of the one piece of equipment not working as well as it was,
Right.
that it's not dewatering the sludge.
All right, so we'll get that information. Let's move on. Capital. Anybody else have any questions about the budget itself before we move to some of the discussion on capital?
On each of the memorandums from people, from the tax collector, the police, the streets, do you want questions now or later about that?
Yeah, I had questions.
Yeah.
From
Just tell us where you are.
Linda Lewis, CFO, she's
What tab?
in finance.
Okay.
Is that the one, Jeff, is that you're talking about going from a part-time to a full-time person? She said, I would like consideration to
No, she
keep that.
doesn't want to do that now.
Okay, and then she also said, I respect them because you reduced my work schedule to 2
She
days.
doesn't want to do that now.
Okay, so neither of those are, okay, because I'm thinking like, do we have, because a lot of times, like you say, we don't have enough people or people aren't covered. Like, do we have enough people in this particular office to do the job? Like, how many days a week does she work now?
3.
3, and she's gonna stay at 3.
Yeah.
And is 3 enough for a CFO to work?
No, but that's part of the reason we want to bring that up.
That's why we want to bring
We
that up.
had somebody working
Yes.
20 hours a week,
Mhm.
but we'd like to make that, if we brought somebody in that just worked 20 hours a week for this next year, it would probably be fine in terms of doing what she was doing, which was assisting on some of the stuff when needed. But it wouldn't improve the areas that we've kind of identified as being a little bit weak in
Mhm.
terms of, there's so much with the human resource aspect of it that's kind of nitty-gritty nonsense,
Mhm.
but everything from the people, things are people have to do with pensions, medical, health insurance
Mhm.
documents and things like that, that employees have kind of, said, we want to go to one person to be able to answer that. Well, we don't have that staffing.
So that if
But
he brings,
we'd like that person to be that person that does that. They'd be doing other things,
Mhm.
but they would do that, and they have the ability at some point in time to, if they pass their certification for CFO, to become the CFO down the road,
Okay.
which we don't have anybody, and that department has a couple of people that are, basically that department's going to retire in the next 2 years, more than likely the whole department.
so so you're looking for a full-time position and someone you're gonna hire, plus she's gonna work the 3 days?
Yes.
And that's enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask just in the future, this type of thing, don't have it, shouldn't really be in, should be directed to you. the
Well,
administrator.
I always get the backup of all the department.
Yeah, I see. But I know, but I don't want you guys to waste your time going through this, because this is stuff that we usually work, and then we bring it to you.
Oh, okay, well,
But that's okay, yeah.
all right. And then I guess, should I continue with some questions?
Yes.
No, I'm just talking about the staffing.
Okay.
The only thing we really shouldn't be discussing personnel issues. If it's personnel issues, we shouldn't be discussing it.
Okay. The vehicles for the police, is that now, or should I?
There's two in the budget. No, it's not capital, they were in the departmental budget.
That's right.
So that's all right, okay, then that's what and then,
Police cars don't last long enough to be capital.
okay. And then the $50,000, I was like, circled that was, and then I have one more question here.
When you're saying 50K, I'm looking at, the figure's 48, I just want to make sure I'm
It's
looking at the right.
52.
It's 52,
52.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the top of, what's that?
In the detail budget?
7.
I think it was, yeah, it's the top of page 7, the very top, recycling miscellaneous.
Yeah, then I was trying to find it back in here.
Oh, in the department report?
Yeah.
I guess maybe.
You have that under buildings, ground repair, construction renovation, is that right? That's on page 7, 50,354. Am I looking at that right?
Page 7, we were talking about, is this page 7?
Yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, it's always at the top of the page.
Recycle.
Yes. It's in recycling.
Oh,
That was the, moving the lead.
Oh, I see. I
posting.
got it. Yep, no, I got you.
Is that what, that's what?
Yes.
What were you looking at, Dan?
I was down further, I was looking at a figure, well, one, I was looking back here in the book here to try and
Jump
match
around,
out the
stay
text.
with one person and then go to the next.
Okay.
person.
Yeah, let's.
We're going
All
all
right.
over.
No, I just want to make
That's
sure I'm
okay.
following,
Right,
Yeah.
and I wasn't.
right, exactly. That's what I was saying, I'm somewhere on recycling, I'm like.
And then I have one last question on the tax collector's report. She said the type of barrier between them and the public, after reading this, is that in the capital? Would that be in capital, or is that already budgeted for? Or we haven't-
It is not budgeted for. If you want to budget for that, it's something we can look at. But it's
Yeah,
not.
Yeah.
that was my question as well.
I think it might be a good idea. And I know years ago, from the beginning, people requested, like change, like a height for counter and workstation. And we never did that.
Well, we
Did
did,
we?
we did make an adjustment in there for the one person so she can sit at the counter.
Okay,
But those heights are, they were required by American Disabilities Act.
okay. But, so we did,
And
there was an
they
adjustment.
are low for everybody else.
Yeah, okay. But, I think if everyone has a barrier, that might be a,
Well, if everybody has a
So-
barrier, we're
Well-
talking about a lot of money.
Yeah, I think you're talking just in
Well-
the area for collections.
for where there's money being collected. Because she's saying that they collect, they have, people come in and pay in cash, and then I guess people give them a hard time, it seems like from her letter. Or is that normally happen, or no, is it a rare?
Thanks to every department here, yes.
Oh, it does. So Jamie, you too, you box you into, yeah. I just thought it was, in the environment of the world today, after I read that, I thought maybe that would be something that we should consider, especially if there's money involved and crazy people around.
So it's kind of a big, it's a big area there to confine, similar to a bank. You look at a bank, they kind of box in the teller area where the money is, to kind of secure it, but that's a pretty long window, and if you do part of the window, you're not really doing anything.
Right.
The court is secure, but it's a very small window. So, I don't know if there's a lot of money. Have we ever had incidents there where there was an issue with theft, or?
No,
I don't think it has to do with
Security?
theft.
we haven't. I mean,
Could you design?
if you want us to put a number in there, we certainly can get a number. I think, one of the areas that we had some concern about just doing it was that they leave the door open
That was my
right
question.
next to the window.
So they'd have
Because
to,
they come in and out, and people have to, come in and out, the employees come in and out to make
You said
copies.
2 years ago, you bring it back to us when they started locking the door.
yeah.
It doesn't happen, so unless they completely do the window, they can still walk in the door.
And they're gonna have to
I
understand
mean,
that
if-
if we do it.
If we did this, then that would be the policy, is that the door has to be locked.
Yes.
If you wanted to go that route, we certainly can do that.
I'm just asking, like, what do you think, I'm not here during this, like, would it be more advantageous, would it hurt business, like, would it make it harder for them to work with something like this, or would it?
I think it would make it more secure.
Yes.
And obviously, I think they'd feel more secure. At the same time, when the building was designed, it was so that there weren't those barriers and the public could communicate. I think when you talk through a little hole, it makes it a little less personable.
Wasn't the original concern, Jeff, that there's 4 days a year or something that there's collection after hours?
Yeah, there's the 10th day usually of the quarter in which they collect. They stay after hours for a couple hours.
Is there anything that could be done just, and that's kind of where I think we left it, is there something that we can do? Really, we don't, I mean, policy-wise, that would, make it easier for them during those few hours a year? Like whether there's no one in the building? I think, and I'd be concerned about that, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you'd like us to get estimates, and we can certainly do that.
Well,
I was kind of wondering if we could put a police officer here, or if they could collect some other way than building, because we went through all those things with the costs before. And it was very expensive, and it affects based on that request then, it affects 4 evenings a year.
Well, it could affect
I don't
every
think
day
they're, I don't
if
think they're
someone-
thinking just 4 days, they think every day. So I don't know if the police, if you're gonna have a police officer here every day.
I think generally, I think it's less about that.
So do I.
Than it is about the
People
concern
being
that
nasty.
some people just go over the top. I mean,
Yes,
you
she, well, in her
honestly-
letter here, yeah.
You can't believe some of the things that people
Yeah.
say to, you're sitting there to somebody who's just collecting taxes.
Yeah.
And didn't make their tax bill, didn't vote on their tax bill. It's, sometimes it's hard to believe.
But like Jeff said also, I'm gonna tell you, it can happen at the construction office if they're not happy. It can happen, they come into Jeff if they're not happy, and they give him a hard time a lot. So I mean, it's everywhere, really. So that's the thing, but at the same time,
Is there any way that you could design, well, I mean, I guess it would all be expensive, but I mean, you just figure for the safety of people. I just think in this world today, you read so many things and you see so many things, and this is not the first time they've brought this up. So it's obviously either a concern, it's a concern for them anyway. And, could we have a cubicle or something where it would just be, where you could collect just one part of the window, not, I don't know how you could design it.
Through the window, so,
Yeah.
I mean, and quite honestly, during collection time, you've got several
Multiple
people
people.
working
Mhm.
at the same time.
The
I
other
mean,
issue-
the only way to do it, if we are gonna do it, is to put, bullet resistant glass, which isn't cheap,
Mhm.
and on the whole thing, and make sure that door is locked constantly, we would have to go along with it.
So the other concern is, I think what you're talking about with the way people do these terroristic attacks, that's what we're talking about. If there are some people locked in a room, they're gonna use the people who are not locked in a room to convince the people locked in a room to open the damn door.
Yeah, that's it.
And
I was gonna say, yeah.
it doesn't really, unless you secure the whole facility, anybody who's not in that secure zone is gonna be used to get into the secure zone.
Well, do you have I mean, I know in the schools, we have like a lockdown, we have, no, you have a procedure. If there's someone that came into the building with a gun or, threatening, there's a whole procedure that, how you lock down a classroom, how you lock down a corridor, and we practice it. Like, is it, you don't have that in buildings here.
You really can't lock this, I mean, you really can't.
Yeah,
I think the building is so small that if somebody walks in, they're gonna have access to everything
Yeah.
within seconds.
Nothing good is at least the police department's right behind.
yeah. Well, no, I mean, just like that, like there would be areas where people would go. That's how they did it in the schools too. Like if kids were in the hall, they would know to go to this place or that place.
Yeah.
What were those drills called? I forget.
There's a couple different names.
Yeah.
Lockdown.
Uh,
I think what Gary said though makes sense, because if you do just the tax office, right, what does that say to Jamie's office? Like like, it's
She's
just.
more vulnerable, that's all.
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw her under the bus,
Yeah.
but, then everyone
Well,
else is there,
I
so
just
I'm
think
not-
the
I
money
feel-
is there, right?
I mean, I
Is that what-
understand the
Well, that's
concern.
their concern, is that
Yeah.
they obviously.
Have the money.
They deal with the money.
Access to cash.
Yes.
I'm sorry to everyone before I ask this question, but what happens when people come in and pay like substantial amount of taxes in cash? Do we have to report that anyway? Like, if they went to the bank and put in $3,000 in the bank, it starts a whole chain of paperwork. Is it different here? Just curious question.
$9,000 in the bank?
Well, it's 3,000 and then 10,000 is like
10,000
a
is
special requirement, but 3,000 they have to notify the bank examiner. So, like, do we do something, I'm just curious why people would come with cash to pay the tax bill.
For some reason, senior citizens have always come with cash.
Really?
And come in person. I mean, you don't have to come in person to pay your taxes.
Well,
Yeah, you
cash, I
usually
guess,
pay it in cash.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not gonna drop it in the mailbox out front.
So maybe as a minimum, we could, maybe establish a procedure, or if we have, and I don't wanna know, and I don't wanna say in this forum, if we have emergency buttons for the police.
We have that.
I'm sure we do. Maybe we can see about increasing the number of them, if that's something that's possible, to give everybody, because you don't just go to the, it might be the person who's being assaulted or whatever, that would be the closest to that button. Maybe we add more for their safety. With the police literally in the same building, the response time, if there's somebody in there,
Well,
should be
we'll
pretty
give
quick.
you an example. There was an instance where somebody did push a button
Mhm.
because they felt they were being harassed, and it took them, I guess the complaint was by the person, it took a while to get somebody there, and that's why.
Yeah, well, if there's nobody in the building, like Gary said,
At
it
no
is.
time. And it was overkill.
Oh, okay, really, okay. Well, I'm just telling you what,
Yeah.
So is this
They had said-
valid? Like, is this?
I'm not saying it's not valid, but
One last question.
Well, let Jeff finish his
Oh,
answer,
sorry.
Mike, and then.
Well, go ahead.
the only answer is if you were gonna put in, if you guys want glass windows and separating people from the public. I mean, that is the only answer to this, and then we would require them to lock the doors.
Mhm.
They don't lock the doors, half the time they don't close the doors and the windows open, so, if you wanted to do that, we certainly can do that. It's a different way of doing business. I mean, if you go to TD Bank, there's nothing between you and a teller.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's really, depends on how you feel. Some people feel differently than others about their security, and obviously that department has,
Concerns.
since that person has been with the department, has expressed concern. The previous tax collector, I never heard expressive concern.
Oh, okay.
But, the world's changing, and maybe it's time to look at it.
well, let me ask you another question, is if you even considered this, do you think the first approach would be to talk to them about the door and the door being open, and then we
We-
realize.
Yeah, I think that you have to go the other, if you want to do it, the door will be locked, period. It'll be a policy. It's not a policy that's locked, because right now, it doesn't make any sense to lock it.
Right,
because
I
you
got
just
you.
go right through the window.
But they understand that it will be locked if we were to go this way. Okay.
My question, maybe just food for thought. Do we really need to have them here? I mean, that's the part I'm most concerned about, which is what they raised a couple of years ago, when there's no one else in the building after.
To answer your
hours.
question, no, we really don't need to have them here.
I mean,
It's been a courtesy, and quite honestly, they've said that rarely does anybody come anymore.
They use it more now just to catch up on.
Yeah, to catch them, they do,
Some
they,
posting and
for
some
their
not.
work, so, no, I don't think it's necessary.
So maybe we could eliminate that first and see if,
yeah, I would like to see that, just because we don't really have the, I don't know, I wouldn't feel good as the person coming in paying my taxes, or the person getting the money at, 6:30 at night, especially in the winter when it's dark, and you're in a building that there's nobody else around. I mean, I realize it's a municipal building, I realize the police are here, but, you know, I still wouldn't
still
feel
skip, yeah.
comfortable. I wouldn't be
Let's try
comfortable.
that first and go
Yeah,
from
let's
there.
try that first.
So from a policy standpoint, maybe we look at eliminating those 4 nights a year.
Yeah, it's not a budget thing, I apologize, but.
You know,
And-
but, no, but, you know, the budget tends to dictate policy in
And
this,
can you
in this
just,
case.
like, not in any rush, I would be curious to see how much it would cost, just, you know, just to see.
Yeah, we had the numbers before,
Yeah,
we'll get
we
you
did that
numbers.
before, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no,
Gary, I liked your idea too of having some kind of a button. that could be
Yeah.
Well, there are
pushed.
buttons, there are buttons.
Right,
I know there are buttons, and, you know, I don't know, I don't wanna discuss it
Right.
in, you know, in front of the
Okay.
cameras. I'm not sure where the camera is showing this, but I know there's a camera. So I don't want everybody to know where the security, our
Sure.
security measures. So I would say that if they're sufficient, maybe the police, maybe the chief can determine that there is a sufficient number of buttons, and if there's not, then maybe that's something we can look at to increase the number of
Right.
emergency buttons. They only tell me where a couple of them are, so. So, but all good questions, thank you, Patty.
yes, I think that's it.
Mike, did you have any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Tyler, did you have any
Yeah,
more
she
questions?
brought that one up, that was it.
Dan, I know that you're, you know, now that you're retired, you have plenty of time to.
yeah, and I have
Capital
no
questions,
questions.
these are
No
these
questions.
are the items,
The what?
the items that are like capital items in the department.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I thought that's what we were getting.
Yeah.
so now the next
yeah,
step is
you're
going to
right.
be, and we're moving along nicely, so there's the kiss of death right there.
That's the second time you've said that.
That's, I know.
It's almost like you're bound and
Capital.
determined.
So, remembering that capital is just what we could include, but it doesn't mean that we definitely are gonna do them. It just means we need to include them for planning purposes, Jeff, and for deposit purposes. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes.
And now I have a question to ask about that. Is there any limit
Keeps coming up.
on the money that we can allocate for the capital budget?
Well, yes, first of all, every time, you have to have sufficient capital improvement fund money to bond. So every time, you've got to put 5% of the money in capital improvement fund, and that's inside of cap, by the way. So that limits you somewhat to how far you can go. And then the other item is, obviously, every time you put something in capital, it's going to increase your budget, and for purposes of just, you know, easy calculation, I mean, it's not entirely accurate, but for about every $1 million you add in the capital budget, you're adding about $85,000 to the actual budget.
Okay.
And it's not always accurate because you don't always go right to permanent financing, and if you don't, then you're not paying principal and interest, but if you were to do principal and interest on $1 million, it's going to be roughly $85,000 to the budget, and that all depends on the useful life of the things you're using and all, but that's just a general kind of rule of thumb in terms of our dollars.
That's after the money's spent.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
I also want to say one thing, when we did this capital budget items and stuff, I just want you guys to know, we were very, very tight all along, and realizing that, and I'm talking about all along in the past years, realizing that there are some things that need to be done for what we need, and we've been delinquent in doing them because of prices, but the majority of the things that are here are things that I felt that are pretty needed. So I just wanted to tell you, these are things that I suggest we do, and there are some things that I cut back on, like where it says basketball courts. I had recommended, let me finish that.
No, I'm agreeing.
Okay, instead of 4, I recommend 2, and the 2 are 1 in each area, 1 in each ward, rather than having 2 in one area and none in the other area. And the most popular areas are the ones that I was thinking, and we'll get to that, but I had recommended when you get there, I thought Brown in Ohio, Ohio State as the courts, because they're probably the most used, and also it's representing 1 in each area. You have 1 in Ward 1, you have 1 in Ward 2. So that's just the things that I went through. Go ahead.
I wasn't screaming.
No, that's okay.
So Ken, is this number for 4 of them or 2 of
I
them?
think this is all 4.
Because I think each was only 20, right? Because I think this is all 4.
I thought.
Well, why don't we do?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get down,
Okay.
talk about them. So, handguns, light and holsters, this would replace all the handguns for the police?
Correct. It's been 7 years since we replaced them. They try to do it on a 7-year cycle. Police chief has contacted other towns, and they also try to keep them on a 7-year cycle. So this would be replacing all the handguns.
7 years ago, it was 7 years?
Yeah.
Historical.
I can't swear by it 7 years before that, but even though I was here, I don't remember that one.
You can look it up, though. look it up.
I have the budget book. I still have the budget
Sure
book.
you do. So, and the detective interview room recording system, you said something about interacting with something else. Was
Body
that that?
cameras.
With the,
Body cameras.
With the body cameras.
Police, mobile
That's
car
how
cameras.
they do it now.
Yeah.
right,
The system's 12 years old. Chief says it's really outdated, it's bad, and needs to be upgraded. I mean, those things are used for court.
Yeah. And there's some other, we'll get some kind of discount because we
Yeah.
use the other equipment.
We would be purchasing through the same company that does the body cameras and the car cameras, and network together. It makes it a little bit easier,
Yeah.
because they all would be networked.
and that means that there would be, the information would be stored in a central location, the videos? You know.
We say a central location.
So.
It says all 3 systems will be networked together, so
They're
recordings
networked,
can easily
meaning-
be
meaning
viewed
that-
and copied.
They're all feeding into one source that, where the recordings would be stored. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I know, I mean, there's a million questions that could be asked. But that would seem like, you know, it would seem like with the way cloud storage is and the way servers work, that video, especially video because of its size, I don't know what the limitations are to the body cameras and the like, but
Yeah, Gary, I actually met with the, got a tour of the police station, and that, they said,
that doesn't surprise me.
but all of that goes into the one system, and then they can, the detectives have access to that, and then they can mark certain time frames in the video where, you know, obviously they don't keep stuff if nothing is happening. So they save that, and then they can save that for as long as they want, depending on the case. But they did say that the new system would work with the current
With the current
system. Yeah.
Okay. It's time for me to take the tour again, it
And
sounds
then,
like. Okay. fire hydrant replacement, this is,
You all right with the car cameras?
we talked about it.
Well, you're talking about the detective, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because this is replacing 4 of them, there's 11 of them. And we're from 2009, wants to start replacing them over a 3-year period.
You know, it's public safety and the police safety. And we have to, just like everything else that the police use, it has a limited working life. And if it's reaching that spot, then that's what has to be done. I'm not saying that we do it all, but it certainly makes sense. This is, and nothing else. I don't know, they're making an absolute, are we making an absolute decision on all this tonight?
No, you're making a decision whether or not they're going in the capital budget, which is a plan, it's the capital plan.
Okay.
Where you're not committing it to it until you do an ordinance or authorize the expenditure.
But again, also, Gary, if you listen to him, he said 4, he's only doing,
Right,
so they're doing it gradual. Right.
Right, I get it. So, again, this plan, thinking about the amount we need to set aside for the down payment, ultimately, it's not a huge impact on the budget, but it is something that we need to look at all this. It'd be great to say, yeah, let's just include all this in the capital, and we'll decide later whether we're gonna actually do it or not.
And
So
for-
did I?
All the new cars, we have 2 of them, right? That is all included.
That's not even.
That's in the operating budget.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of they'll have their own video recorders, that's included in the price.
Of the car.
No,
No.
these are separate.
The only thing that includes is the cars and
Mike?
the lights on top, the
Okay.
light bar.
That's
That's a
why,
good
that's
point.
why I
No, I
asked.
totally, I got where you're at.
Yeah, then it could
Why I wanted-
transfer the equipment from the.
Yeah,
public
okay.
budget to the service.
Thank you.
All right, so next on the list is the fire hydrants.
What this is there's 4 private fire hydrants on this site. They're the ones that are marked in red. One of them, we want to retain 2 of them. We don't need to retain all 4. We talked with the fire officials here. And they don't think that there's a need for all 4 of them. We have a public fire hydrant right out front as well, but one of them is leaking, and one of them is not functional at all. We're having that checked out to determine whether or not that one can be abandoned. This number, 35,000, is on the high side right now. That's if we did all of the things we need to do, but we may be able to just do some work on abandoning it ourselves, so we're going to look into that. This issue came up within the last month or so, right as we were reviewing the budget. But what we want to do is have 2 operating that work and are repaired, and then the other 2 we'd like to abandon. And so that's what's involved in this. And we're going to update, Jerry's trying to get numbers, he's having some difficulty having some people get back to us, but get people back to us and give you a better number. The number will probably go down.
So we'll have that number before we go to.
Yeah,
Finally.
please excuse me for giggling. I was thinking about Gary's remark that the 2 hydrants are the ones outside of your office and Jerry's office. A couple meetings ago.
Yes.
That's all I should do.
Yeah.
But we're keeping 2, just like there's 2 we're keeping, 2 we're putting out of service, and we're gonna repair those 2.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So the leaf truck is next on the list, and let's talk about the success of the first 2 and what that meant to us from a budgetary perspective.
Well, first of all, I think everybody has probably seen what it does in terms of performance before we get to the budgetary. We were getting to most of the streets almost on a weekly basis this year, and that used to take place probably 3 weeks to get to some areas of town that they were doing it on a weekly basis. We were able to reduce overtime by almost $40,000 by purchasing those machines. they couldn't have worked out better. I mean, and people used to come, to be honest with you, to watch how we did our leaf pickup before. Other towns, a number of towns came to watch because, we shuttled our trucks and they were impressed with what we did. Now, we've got a lot of towns that have come to visit this last year to watch these leaf machines in action. They're amazing. What this leaf machine would do, it's not going to cut down any more in overtime. We're there in terms of those numbers are really small for leaf season now. What it will do is it will provide us with 2 men at least 4 months of the year that won't be working on the leaf truck to do other things. When leaf season comes, that was the most significant problem we had, is everybody in the department was working on leaves. We still have crews, besides those 2 trucks out, we have our crews out that are running the 3-man trucks. And what this will do is allow us to take one of those trucks off again. And we still have to have somebody operating the truck, so you're opening up 2 bodies for 4 months to do other work in town. And, when you're talking about, in terms of trying to justify it, 2 men in a time period where, we've got the new facility going in that is getting a lot of use and is all scheduled out, I think, already this year. And the other areas that they're being asked to do things is it'll give him manpower to do those. So that's the rationale in terms of doing, buying one, and then also it would give us 2 if one of them were to go down for any reason for any period of time. And remember, when you're looking at the number 255, it's not just a leaf truck. That same truck gets used for plowing snow in the winter and for other uses that we have other than leaf season. So you're basically buying another truck, and then you're adding on that capability. So a regular truck might be half of that number. So it's really half of that 255 that's probably costing you for the leaf equipment.
The other thing you want to realize also is when the last couple of years, we had people, retire, we cut back on our staff. We didn't replace a lot of people. So, and we added more things to be done in the town, like Jeff said, the community park and stuff like that. So what this does is we were able to save money by employing those people, benefits to those people. So now what this allows us to do is free up those 2 people and utilize in other areas so we don't have to hire more people.
So Jeff,
So I just wanted to
Yeah, I remember Jerry explaining that to us.
Yeah.
In terms of manpower, we have the same manpower that we had before the
Yeah.
Grand and Summer.
How many people do we have in public works?
we talked about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, wow.
so when we run,
I was curious.
in order to get through the town, like as you described, in a week, every week we cut through the town, is that 3 crews typically would do that?
3 and 4.
3 or 4 crews. So we would go from running 2 high efficient, and 2 with the 3 men, to 3, and 1 if we needed it for the leaf season. Well, it certainly makes sense to, in my mind, to eliminate the need for the 2 extra guys to be on there. I mean, it's like anything else.
Yeah, my only question is, what is the comparison between what we would pay in debt on the truck versus for those 4 months bringing in temporaries?
I'll calculate that number for you and take a look at it. I will say, because I think it's going to come up later, since Patty asked the question this afternoon.
Yeah, I have it on my notes here.
We actually have temporaries in this budget. We had some in last year for the summer, for summer help. Difficulty with temporaries is that they're not always in a position to do some of the things that we need done versus our own manpower. They're somewhat limited in terms of what we're comfortable having them do from a standpoint of safety and training.
Well, I guess that it was just kind of like, if, going from what Gary was just talking about, if we have 2 3-man crews out there, and one of those 3 is a temporary, I mean, what's the difference in the cost doing it that way? And you're freeing up 2 people from those 3-man crews for those 4 months, or paying for another $250,000 truck. I just want to see the numbers, that's all.
Sure, you can generate those numbers.
If it makes sense, it makes sense.
So,
But as far as the budget, I would keep it on. Yeah.
so next is grass cutters. They're what laymen would call lawnmowers.
Or the riding.
The riding, but just, I've never seen called grass cutters. I always thought that was the person. And obviously we need them.
With all the grass bits that cut everywhere now.
These, would these be for the two guys that have freed up? To be
Well,
able
these are used almost all year round. I mean, they're 10 years old, the ones we have now.
How many do we have, Jeff, ballpark? 8 or 10, 6 or 8?
No. We have a couple.
Only have a couple, and they're going. Well, we keep asking to cut more and more grass, so it makes sense to me to make sure that the mowers are.
They're operating constantly from May through October.
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of people recognize how much grass we're cutting in terms of under every high tension wire from Squeeze Run through, all the way through Tenby in front of the swim club, all the athletic fields. This facility.
So we have a couple now, and they're 10 years old and past their expected life. This would cut down on some maintenance, hopefully, for those machines.
A little bit, it's not a big.
It's not, I mean, I recognize these are not cheap machines, but I'm sure there's efficiencies that come with them. I don't have any problem. If anybody has a question. So the dump truck would be replacing the old rust bucket.
17-year-old truck.
Wow.
These are used for asphalt, asphalting, snow plowing, salting, and hauling materials. Big deal. Most of our trucks last pretty long. They rust out before they wear out. I mean, they still operate, but after time, they just rust out.
Yeah.
I also read with Jerry's report, and I'm just, are we going to buy that, or rent the truck that's gonna put the sealant on the cracks?
Rent.
That's rented. Did we ever think of buying that? Was that ever a request to buy it?
We discussed it internally, and
Mhm.
every bit of the information that we received is that they're really difficult to maintain. You're constantly cleaning them out, and they're not gonna get enough, they'll get use for a couple months a year. And we even talked about the possibility of doing it interlocal with other towns,
Mhm.
and we've the towns that have had them in the past have gotten rid of them. We've talked to them, is that they're so difficult to maintain and keep up that they recommend that we don't do it. The cost of leasing them for a couple weeks is better than purchasing them.
Okay, because I did remember us talking about that a while ago. Would we buy the, okay, so that's, all right, thank you.
And it is in this year's budget
Yes.
again for some additional time.
Yes, okay.
And will they get the amount of time that they're rented, they'll get to all those?
Everything they need to do.
They won't get to all of them.
No.
There's a lot of areas that need it.
Mhm.
So we're going to.
Would it be worth it to increase that
It's getting
time?
worse.
Yeah, I know.
Is that something
It's a
that's
shame.
possible?
We want to do it.
Well, you
Or can we
look at the rate
rent
of it,
two
like,
if
I
we're-
read that here,
Can you only do it a certain time of year because of weather?
in the amount of-
Well, I mean, it's limited somewhat, you're not gonna do it in the winter
Right.
and things along those lines, but, I mean, there's some limitations. I think right now, it'll get to the areas that he thinks, after working with it last year, talking to Jerry, he's got areas that he feels need it, and he feels like he's in a better position to kind of oversee it this year, where this past year was the first time doing it in a long time. That he probably made some mistakes in terms of directing it to certain areas that maybe wasn't as useful and didn't get as much out of it. So I think he feels like he's in a better position to get a lot more out of it this year. So he's comfortable with what he's budgeted.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, the residents loved it. I mean, I got so many good compliments on, I mean, when they did Ashley Crossing and a lot of other different places that they did, the people commented and said, it's fantastic that we did that, so a lot of people really liked it.
I mean, I can touch base with them again, usually the department heads are trying to keep it tight, not, you
Exactly,
guys
that's
are
the-
offering
But
more
in-
money, some of them.
No,
Well-
no, I'm just saying, you know, I mean, if
If it works.
doing 80% of the job, let's get to 100%. But if it's doing 40%, then it would be a ridiculous difference in price, you know.
I think the two biggest machines are that machine and also the brine machine. Those two, I think people really were the residents-wise, were really looking forward to those
But
two machines.
if we're gonna be able, like, I mean, can you do it, like, at least, I'm thinking, when you have the 2 men freed up, would you be able to rent that vehicle?
I don't think you
And
want to
put
do it
2
for at
men.
least season.
Yeah, I guess it would be, yeah, it would stick, but, or if we're, like, I'm gonna ask about summer help, if you had some summer help, would, you know, you'd be able to free some experienced people up and rent do twice as much in the summer. I mean, I don't know, I have no idea.
What's the cost of that again? I forget off the top of my head.
What's that?
Renting the sealer
It was like 10,000.
for how long?
Or something.
A week?
Well, I think we did 2 weeks last year, and we're looking to do essentially the same, a little bit.
What's the purchase price that I did?
No, it was significantly higher. It's not,
So
Not
the pay
what-
for that's what I was gonna
it's
say.
not the dollar amount, it's that it's not, there's not an advantage to owning it.
Because of the amount of time we use it.
It's the maintenance.
Okay.
I'd like to hear, I think I'm kind of going with what Patty's saying, is I'd like to hear what Jerry has to say about, you know, what more can be accomplished. I mean, it's, you know, it's an expense, but it's a needed expense.
Yeah, people love it.
You know, I mean,
Yeah, if it's,
yeah,
it
just like,
works,
'cause
yeah.
I think everybody wants him to maximize what he can get done, and if that means a couple extra weeks, or, you know, let's hear what he has to say. I'd like to hear that.
Again, I think that the theory is, if what it's doing is valuable for protecting the streets, it's gonna be valuable to all the streets that need it. You know? Maybe-
Understood, but, I mean, it does certain things and it doesn't do others.
Right.
It seals cracks, it doesn't do potholes.
Right.
Right.
Things
Right.
along those lines. So
Right.
what he's looking to do is maximize it in areas that have cracks and things along those lines.
Right, and I think people think those cracks, they think that they can get widened and stuff like that, but just keep riding over it rather than sealing them. So I think that's their idea, maybe it'll preserve the road a little bit longer.
Well, it does.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so that's the reason.
Yeah.
So, this,
I'm just, did he also say that, and I might be right, that or did we get a pothole? Wasn't he looking also to improve the way we did potholes? Did we do that? Did we work on that? Did we get a machine? I remember he had,
He
He was
backed
looking
off,
at it, yeah.
he was looking at it, but he backed off on putting that in this budget, he didn't feel comfortable with what he saw so far.
oh, okay.
And I think he needs to really look at it, because the county had a machine,
Mhm.
and it's the one, and I know he was talking about was a separate unit. County has the one that's tied in with this whole truck, and it generates the mixture and all
Mhm.
that. And as soon as they got it, started using it, it clogged up. So
Okay.
that's probably why he's looking
And
into
that's,
it.
actually, that's
Okay.
what happens with the seam sealer too. is
Yeah, I
the
bet,
clog
yeah.
Constantly need maintenance.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
so, this 27-year-old truck,
Yeah, on the
the
case
case
loader.
loader would, in essence, save the premature wear and tear on a new loader. And this is, I mean, you know, if it makes sense to do this, to replace the transmission for 20 grand, and that saves a new, more expensive truck, I mean, that makes sense. I like the fact that they're not always coming to us and saying, we need a new one of these trucks. That they're finding ways to lengthen the life of the vehicles that we're using.
Oh, we got that truck painted, SUV for
Right.
construction, exactly same
Right.
thing. And they're like that, I'm telling you, they know they're being very cost effective. They always have been, so.
27-year-old vehicle, I was sort of saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that it's not, I mean, I think it makes sense, as long as we're not gonna do this, and then, you know, in 6 months, it's gonna need something else, because it's a 27-year-old vehicle. That's just as much money. It's just the transmission, the rest of it seems to be in good working order. Yeah.
I mean, good enough to do what we're
What we
requiring.
want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about the repairs and the possibility of fixing replacing the one and having a new one, and then just kind of fixing the pump that's leaking. Is that the bad?
That's this what you said, this is it.
Right. So,
This is the other one.
this is the other one.
Yeah, we're already getting the first one done. This is if we're
Right.
gonna go for the second one.
So this is repairing the second unit? So we had talked about replacing the first unit and kind of
Hoping.
keeping hoping that the new unit would work. Gotta be under warranty, gotta be, since we
This
just,
is the HVAC.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that where we ultimately left it was, that the first, you know, the other one is the backup, that apparently, you know, hopefully might never need, but, that was gonna be part of that energy audit. So we kind of replaced what needed to be replaced, that's kind of how I remember it.
This is the second one.
And this is for the backup?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, my opinion is that keep it in the budget. If we can do it through that energy program, great. If we can't, then it's there if we want to go.
it doesn't look like that $35,000, it's a big number for impact for the budget itself.
No, I mean,
Yeah, but
it's a capital budget.
Right, you just put it there, and if you need it, you need it.
Right,
you know?
I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah, just
don't
have
need
it
to do
there
it,
so we
but,
can do it.
We get a second crack at it.
yeah. But I'm not sure I'm sold on repairing it yet. But we can put it in the budget as far as I'm concerned. Now this building that used to be a water company property, roof, seems like, what got me was when whoever made the comments, I guess Jerry said the township would not let a resident leave their house like this. You know, we have to maintain our properties to the level that we ask the residents to do it.
Do we use this building?
Yeah, we do.
We have some equipment in, yes. It's a good building. It's
And
actually-
we
It's actually
use-
in really nice shape other than the roof.
If we were to get the roof done, would we utilize it more?
I mean, we're already utilizing it. I don't know if we'll utilize it anymore, to be honest with you.
No,
Yeah,
no,
we
What,
had
it's
talked
leaking?
about-
It's leaking?
Oh, it's got holes in it.
It's got holes in it, yeah.
Because we had talked about this last year, I don't know if it was so clear with the long-term, you know, what we're gonna do long-term with. But that's what he wants to do, is keep it for.
use it.
Yeah, right now, I mean, he uses equipment over there that, you know, if he needs something that's closer to that area of town, we put some things in there. But it's a really nice little building.
I know the building,
Was this, did he, I know I talked to him when we talked in my office, and I asked him if he can get some prices, was that?
This is just an estimate.
That's what- okay.
One of the difficulties we have when we're not actually going out to buy things is people get tired of responding to getting quotes, you know, if they don't think it's really up. So he just got one quote. I mean, this is not, we're not tied into this, obviously, in any way, as we have to go through the whole purchasing procedures that would be involved. We just want to get a number that we can put in for now.
And that's not just shingling, that's repairing the actual structure of the roof, because that's a big number for a roof.
Yeah, that's what I thought
I know.
too. Is it a little, I remember seeing the building, how big would you say the building is?
I've been in it a number of times. I'd say it's, I guess I'd say it's about 30 by 30.
Oh,
That's what I was
okay.
gonna say.
Okay. It doesn't
it
involve.
was a pumping station or something.
Yeah, it
Yes.
was New Jersey American Water
Yeah.
had it.
Where's it located?
It's on
right off of Fairview Street.
the old tar property, that,
Oh.
the property that,
Before you get to Pancos, if you're coming off Route 130, before you get to Pancos, on the right-hand side, there's a little forty going back there between, what's the name, Access?
Jerry's committed to using it, if we can use it, we need the space, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you guys.
Yeah, so, yeah, then it's gotta be taken care of.
Yeah.
okay. Next is the roof on the municipal building.
I definitely say we need to do it, and I think with this whole energy thing and what is it, Snyder doing their study with maybe possibly solar and cost savings bit, I think it's a win-win to do it that way if we can do it.
It's kind of the same deal.
Exactly.
Put it in the capital budget, and if there's a cheaper, better way to do it with this energy on it, we do it that way.
Yeah.
So I think we need to include that.
Yeah.
You know, in.
Oh, yeah, it has to be, because if you don't include it, then we
Exactly.
Can't
then
do
we can't do it if it's not part of that audit.
it. Okay, so next, was, Conroe Park. And so, it's, just help me to understand, it says it's our oldest park, and many of them are outdated. Is this the oldest equipment? I mean, there's some older parks, but this is the oldest set of equipment that's currently in use? Is that what he's saying
Well,
here?
I think this park kind of got the most use over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, if you take a look, most of the stuff is now fading, and
Yeah.
it's older, so it's,
Even safety-wise,
Is
it's
it,
not
that's
that
what I was gonna say,
safe.
is it becoming unsafe?
I don't think it's unsafe. I mean, they go out and they do monthly checkups on it, inspections for safety and.
Really? Not Jerry said
Yeah.
there was.
Well, there's issues he's had to repair. So, and they keep popping up because it's older. So he's suggesting that we start taking a look at that, replacing, or start replacing pieces of equipment.
Jeff, it says see attached under cost. Attached where?
I don't remember seeing the number. I have a question mark next to mine.
It was inside his,
Yeah, it was in his,
This
it's in his
little
deal.
deal.
In Jerry's?
I think so.
In what,
Yeah, this-
building and ground?
Streets
It was right behind.
Probably under building the ground, I would think.
Well, I'll read it to you, I'll get you copies of this, I don't know where Jen put it, because she makes the copies.
and- No, here it is.
Replace
The board
existing.
structure.
Tell us where?
It's in streets and roads, because I remember reading it. And it says the castle, the very, at the
Replace
end.
existing swings,
Yeah,
equipment 9,000, install
Going down the
3,200.
prices.
Replace track ride, seesaw snake and spring riders with an inclusive spinner, dragonfly, totter, and 4-section
Oh, yeah,
wall,
okay.
rock wall, equipment 11,513, install 4240, replace the castle structure 70,000, install 28.
They don't need ADA
Ford structure
requirements either.
45.5, install 18,000.
Yeah, it also reads, it doesn't, currently they don't meet ADA requirements. Which I don't know, if anything happened to somebody.
and I think that both structures, the castle and the fort, he wants them at two different age. Right.
2 to 5.
Yeah. Because the fort and castle now are designed for 5 to 12, there's nothing for 2 to 5, which is true over there. So,
What's the total?
it's a lot.
Well,
I don't think you have to do it all at one time, too.
No.
You can do, like I said, that you can phase too. Do it, phase it in, do a couple in each year, you know what I'm saying? Instead of taking it all on at one time. But it's up to you guys what you want to do.
You doing the math?
I mean, it's roughly 200,000
Like I
for
said,
all of it.
like I said, you can phase it in.
I think it would be good to start on that, you know, as even if it was a 2-year project. But put it on.
Yeah, especially since we're not ADA compliant, there's
Right.
nothing in there for the 2 to 5-year-olds.
And can I suggest do a little bit of 2 to 5 and do a little bit the other?
That's what I thought.
Right, mix it.
Yeah,
So you know, the other thing to remember is that we're bringing Jake's Place online soon, so that'll be, you know, hopefully we'll handle all the ADA compliance issues. I don't know how that,
Yeah, but I think you have to have it everywhere. Yeah, it's every park.
I think
Yeah.
as you go,
Is there-
to replace it though. I don't know.
Yeah, is there
Or the
specific
grandfather.
equipment that wouldn't need ADA right now?
I'm gonna have to touch base with them on that, because most of the park equipment's pretty much standard throughout all of our parks. And then, I think one of the other things you guys gotta think about is this, when this park was put in, this was considered kind of the main park, like Jake's Place will be the main
Right.
park, as to what purpose you want this park to serve. You know, obviously, if you put $200,000, that's a lot of money.
I agree. But I think we do need to know what the requirements are.
Yeah, I'll touch base with him,
Right.
what he's saying, it's not ADA compliant.
Thank you.
you know, almost 190,000. Okay, so these were the, it looks like we have Ken's notes built right into this. This was the basketball court updates. Yeah, it's two little X's next to the ones that you talked about
Oh.
around in Ohio. And these are 30 years old. Okay, so here's just something to think about. So are these courts that are A, used all the time, and B, the residents aren't gonna complain that they're being, that we're gonna generate more people playing on them and they're disruptive?
Okay, let me explain what I think, okay?
Okay.
First of all, Ohio State, I think, does get used.
Is that right off of
Ohio
Haynes
State
Mill?
Road.
Yeah, right near
Haynes
Haynes.
Mill Road.
Mhm.
It does get used, and it's probably in an area, I mean, it's an area over there where there's no other courts. And then, as far as Brown, that's where they have also baseball and stuff like that, so it's like a sports complex.
Right.
And they're all there all the time utilizing that sports complex, so the residents are already familiar with it all being there.
Yeah, from morning till
And you
night,
tell me-
too,
right.
it's- They're I mean,
Right.
first thing in the morning till, you gotta chase them out at night.
Right. So you wanna go to the most popular, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna say, to answer your second question, part of your question first, are people gonna complain if they get more use?
Right.
Yeah, that's gonna
At
happen
any one of
everywhere,
the- At any
yeah.
one of the four.
Yeah, as far as Brown Street, I don't know how much more they could use it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
constant.
Yeah, it does get a lot of use.
Yeah, so I think those two areas are the hot areas right now, and you're covering one in each area, which it's a win-win. And you can always start adding the others later. Like Mulberry, it's a small section of area, I don't know how much it even would get used back there. And Stewart, I don't know about Stewart, do you know Stewart?
As far as basketball,
Stewart
I
Court
do not know.
in
But
Friendship
I'll
Park.
find out.
It gets used, but not constantly. In fact, I rarely see it get used when I drive around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought those two.
But, so that would bring the number down to 43.5 for two.
And we can gradually do the others, because it wouldn't be bad getting them all back to where they need to be. But let's do little by little, we don't have to do them all.
It's like anything else, we can't do it all at once, but I think these two would be a good idea. We already did the road reconstruction, but we don't have to go through that again, right? Okay. CDBG project, this was, do these grant things need to be, what do we need to do for them? Just make sure we have the money?
We have to budget it, it's not, you know, if the 85, you get the 85, if you do the $85,000 project, 78,000 is coming up through a grant, so you're really only paying for 7, but we have to budget it, so we'll put it in capital as, and the same thing with the sidewalk improvement, 220,000, 176 is coming from the grant, so you would have to pay the difference, and we'd have to put that in the capital.
So I've only lived in town for about 43 years, but where's Route 120?
It's right next to Route 130, if you keep going down.
Just, It's getting late, it's
The
getting
worst,
hot.
the worst part is, I did type this. Jen did not type that.
Points for honesty.
That one's mine.
Points for honesty.
Uh,
I'm trying to figure out what one's playing.
So, all right, so we talked about.
Once you're here 50 years, you can figure out where it's at.
Okay, I'm working on it. So, you know, we had the engineer in, sounded, you know, what sounded to me was the first two projects, Clay Street and the tank weir improvements were something that they absolutely recommended. That the water reclamation, I didn't get a number, but it seems to me that in the casual conversation, they were looking at like 75,000 to put in for that study. And that would be, it's not money wasted unless we didn't do the water reclamation, which I definitely believe we should do. It would just be, it has to be studied anyway so that we can bid it appropriately and get a number. I think maybe that should be included, but I don't think the variable drive, as they suggested, I think that should wait till we get the results of the ESIP. Additional funds for sand filter, what do we need that?
Last year's sewer budget, you had, I think, 1.5 million for, no, 1.4 million, I think, for the sand filter, and they went out to bid, and it came in about 1.9 million.
Crap.
So, if we want to rebid this, we have to put additional funds in the capital budget.
And they said they needed it, that's necessary,
well,
yeah,
that's
that's
critical.
very
Because we
necessary.
changed from the sand filter to that disc system, right? It was an upgrade.
Mhm.
Yes.
I looked at this a little more.
And all, just so you know, well, they're suggesting, they're gonna do some background work with the attorney manager and yet, is that we actually try to get this in so we can award the bid if we win. All of the bids roughly were within, you know, real small percentages of each other, so, the number looks like it's the right number based upon that, because there's a number of bids. And if we go out to bid, they don't see it getting better,
Okay.
possibly, you know, not doing. So they're asking to see, and the only reason I haven't come to you yet is that I don't have the legal information. We just had a short meeting with them midweek last week to go over this. They're gonna come back in with some recommendations on it and a legal opinion as to whether or not we can get, first of all, that the bidder will extend his bid, because it would have to be extended, the time frame, and whether or not we can award that. So I'll probably be touching base with you next week on that.
Okay. So Jeff wants to get in the plow business too?
We talked about that, that was,
Well, he's
this-
recommending, I mean, he can live without it, but the value to us is that if there's a snowstorm, then we can use the plows
Right.
with the sewer trucks.
and that was something we talked about last year when we were talking about other options of, I don't mean, it's really your call, but that was
So
something
this
we
is
discussed.
a truck, two trucks and with a plow? Or this is just a plow and salt spreader?
No, it's two
Two
trucks.
trucks with plow and salt spreader? That's pretty reasonable, I mean, reasonably relative number, but I did not read that one.
Pickups.
I'm sorry?
Good pickups.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, what is, are we replacing two old ones, or is it two very old ones?
Yeah, didn't they tell us?
It's a 1993 Chevy pickup and a 2001 Ford pickup they need replacing.
Okay.
Something with this? With F-350s and.
Yeah, it was the lower model versus the higher model, and whether or not this is that, yes.
Yeah.
And you wanted the
So
350.
we wanted the 350 to handle the plows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we ultimately say that we get both 350s, but one without the plow, and then if we ever decided to upgrade it at some point, because of the
You told,
durability.
you brought that up, yes. That was
Yeah.
that one 150 and one 350, and if we wanted to upgrade
So
it,
if we,
yeah.
but if we got the 150, then we can't use it to plow, right? It's just not, it's
Yeah.
like the beating.
I think it's Mike said two 350s,
Right.
for one
One with the plow.
with
Right.
the
The
snow.
plow
equipment.
is spread.
So then
So
you
when do
want-
we get the plow for the 350? Or we share the plow for the same?
You wouldn't, but if you needed, the theory is if you needed to upgrade.
But let me ask you a question, how much does that plow add to the,
I
to the-
don't know,
that
I'm
would be the
saying what the
question.
theory is, yeah, I
Is
don't-
it worth it to
Add it
hold
now,
off
yeah.
on the one plow? I don't know how much that one plow is,
Yeah,
but I
well,
understand,
yeah.
right?
You should, hold off on both of them, but I would definitely recommend that the difference between the 350 and 150 is.
Right. You get
usually
two
a truck
two
lasts
350s.
25 years and lasts 10, so.
What's the turnaround time to get a plow, do you know? That's what you, let's say we got
a
two,
storm coming.
well, that's what I'm saying, let's say we got two 350s.
Right off the top of my head, I don't know.
Yeah.
So we usually get them outfitted when we buy the truck.
And is it cheaper to get them with the plow than without the plow, and then to get the plow separate, that's the other
It's
question.
probably not that much of a difference there.
So,
Let me ask you a question. Do we need the plow, or do we have the manpower to use two more plows?
Well,
this was what we talked about.
if we, yeah, this was sort of the discussion we had last year, is that the sewer guys, we approached them about saying whether or not they plow. We didn't really have any significant storms this year to bring them in, but when we had a really significant storm, we had to have conversations with the union and the whole business. But if there's a significant storm, we can use them. And yeah,
There was interest.
we do need them. And the first storm we had last time, we had two guys that were willing to do it. And now we have, what we see is as we hire younger guys, they want to do it. The older guys, not so much. But there's a couple guys that are going to retire next year, so we think it's going, and there's two relatively young guys that definitely want to do it. So we think as that manpower turns over, we'll have an opportunity to add, when there's a snowstorm, to that workforce without having to hire other individuals. So, it really comes down to the cost of the trucks.
And don't be just going by, this year was a nice quiet storm, because last year was really bad, the year before,
I guess
so.
my question is, do they have a need for the plow separate from public works? Like the parking lot to get to access?
Yeah, they do plow.
Okay.
They do their area and plow, so they need a plow. I mean, they
They
have
need a
one.
plow?
They have one.
Okay.
Yeah,
So is that one of the vehicles that's being replaced? And does the plow need to be replaced?
I don't believe it is, Mike. I don't believe it is. I'll double check on that.
I'm gonna just say something, if you look at this figure, Mike, it's 98,000 for two trucks, plow and the salt spreader. So if you were just to think about the trucks themselves, I don't think the plow and the salt spreader really are that much, because
I
with
wouldn't.
98,000, you're talking the truck's gotta be close to 40.
Yeah,
Right?
After
Or 40, yeah, 40.
At least
So-
in the mid-30s.
Right, so let's say 40, just to say, so you're talking 80, so you're talking 18 for two plows and two salt spreaders. So how much could a,
I mean, to answer your other part of your question is, in terms of the trucks, is that when there's a snowstorm, every truck that can plow is on the road. There aren't trucks laying around. So that's the other thing, is it would give you a backup when trucks go down.
Yeah, I would say, I kind of see what the mayor's saying, you want to maximize it, for, if they're going to spend 80, why would you go without a plow and leave the truck dormant when it could be used?
And just in case any of the neighboring towns think they're gonna catch us by way of being as good as us with snow plowing, I think we need to maintain our dominance in that department. We need the trucks anyway, and,
Yeah, for that little bit.
we're replacing, all this math, 24-year-old truck. Do buy quality, don't forget the price, and, it's what everybody always told me. Get the good quality, and you'll forget how much you paid for it, unless you buy something cheap, and then you'll kick yourself for not spending a few extra bucks.
Yeah,
So I say we go with the two trucks. Anybody else disagree?
With the plow.
With the plows and spreaders.
With the plows, the 350s with the plow and salt spreader. Did we say we were okay with the additional funds for the sand filter, correct? to
Yeah,
include that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Tired of
I don't think we kind of have a choice. though.
Yeah.
No, I think that's.
Doesn't
yeah.
sound like it.
No, I think we need that.
And last but not least, I forget, I mean, I'm gonna reserve any cynicism, but acoustic tool is for,
Yeah, it doesn't.
This,
This
when
is
he
for-
presented it, there's an article about it in here. You
yeah, I
gotta look
saw
at
that
it.
thing.
It's a tool that is very beneficial and critical for him
Yeah.
to do his work. I think it does the line,
It's the
did it do the
sewer line
line?
rapid
Yeah.
assessment tool.
Yeah, and it enables him to see, I think if I remember this, like,
It's
if there's
behind
roots or
Here
stuff,
it
tab
is.
2.
if there's roots or
Utilities
stuff.
are back.
Sewer
Yeah, two.
section is 2.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of Q&As on it, exactly what it does.
Yeah, it does the lines.
Yeah.
Sewer line rapid.
Yeah.
yeah.
It would allow them to assess the state of the collection system 20 times faster than what we can do now. It allows to cut the time needed to evaluate the collection system from 5 years to 3 months, increase our service level to our residents by decreasing backups and helping to prevent problems.
And this is obviously much better than TV in the line and looking at it faster.
TV in the lines was great 20 years ago, I mean, but there are limitations
Didn't
to
we
it.
just buy a TV truck?
What?
Didn't we just buy a TV truck?
Yeah, we have a truck, it won't eliminate doing TV, but a couple years ago, yes, we did.
And we use
So,
that.
I mean, it's a backhaul jetter too, so, I mean, how do you put it?
Camera, then we buy a camera.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an MRI for a sewer line, similar, except it's not magnetic.
When,
Well, 30 pages of scientific information.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems great if it's something that, you know, what
It's
was
state of
the
the art
number?
with the-
Yeah,
Not 5 years, but
20 minutes.
inspect over 10,000 feet per day. It's something that we need.
is it something,
I don't know, we need it.
it is something that we need, it makes life a lot easier for him to view the lines and things like that. But Mike, I think, when was that camera purchased, the TV?
Was it the last budget?
No, we
Better
didn't do
not
any
have
single
been.
capital last year.
No.
How long ago was it, do you
I'm
remember?
gonna say it's within 2 years.
I was gonna say, I think it's since I've been here. I think you did that maybe the first year.
How much, do we remember, it was in 2015?
Yeah. Because I remember us
Are you still
discussing.
gonna use that camera?
Yeah, it's not gonna eliminate the use of
Well,
the camera.
it's not, this is probably better and quicker and it's probably more accurate.
This
I
is,
think we're gonna
it's-
still be using both.
I
This
just
is
wanna
just
make sure,
gonna,
right.
this
This
thing
is-
is gonna enhance.
Yeah, enhance the overall
Right.
coverage.
Right.
And it's a tool, it's not replacing the whole.
Now I have another question with the capital budget. Do we include things here like the net for Leon Field as part of, you know, if we were gonna, you know, we talked about that, or you want to wait till next week? Is this where we would just bring
I
that
don't know,
up?
Jeff, you know,
And
something like
water
that.
spigot for Leon or summer help, I had asked about, like, when would that be? When should that be brought up?
If you're doing water at Leon, well, it depends on how you're doing water.
Mhm.
If you're doing it well, certainly you should put it in, but I think we would recommend, if you are gonna do water at Leon, that you do New Jersey American
Yeah.
Water.
Mhm.
It's one of the areas that we don't recommend,
Pump.
the other alternative. In terms of the net, we went down and looked at it, and quite honestly, we don't know what they're trying to accomplish by the net. There's a 10-foot fence right next to where the batting cage is, and then there's another fence that we put outside the 10-foot fence to keep kids from running after balls. So we're not sure where they wanna put the net or what it's gonna accomplish.
This is, I wish you were here then, Dan, because I talked to New Jersey Transit, and they were like looking for stuff like that, because the tracks is what they're talking about. Yeah, they were, I mean, they were very receptive, but I never really got any data back as far as what exactly they were looking to, like, you know, how high they wanted it to be, and it kind of got dropped there, but now that it's Dan.
And New Jersey Transit wanted to
Yeah, like,
help fund it?
anything that, yeah, anything
just
that's
have
safety oriented.
Leveraging your
Oh.
railroad connections.
Yeah, anything that's safety oriented related to the train, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's a 10-foot fence that goes up to the third base line. and it stops.
They're
Then there's a
talking
fence-
about
Well,
foul balls going over the fence,
Over
and
the
the
fence,
kids going
yeah.
to
No,
the
yeah.
tracks to
And
retrieve.
that
No,
was-
I understand exactly what they're talking about.
And exactly what
But
Barry
go
just
take a
said
look
was
at it.
how I
Doesn't
said it,
Make
you know.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
10 feet's enough? I mean,
No.
for a ball, foul ball?
It's little, it's usually little girls that play on that field, to be honest with you, they're not older kids. It's-
Yeah, but
You
I
said
don't
it would
care
be
how
about
little they
10
are.
feet, right?
How-
Anybody
how
can
high
hit
you
a
gonna
ball.
put- How high are you gonna
Yeah,
put
well,
the fence?
I'm not saying you put the fence up high.
No, the
No,
net.
the net.
How you gonna put, how high you gonna put the net?
I don't know.
Well, that was kind
We,
of.
we, we don't, we don't,
No, I
under-
understand.
we went out and looked, we don't understand what they're trying to accomplish.
Where,
Okay,
how
I'll
they
get
gonna
you the
tie the,
pictures.
how they
I'll-
gonna tie the net?
He asked to extend two 10-foot poles, and the net would go across,
So they would add the poles to extension and put
extension
a,
from the fence.
It'll be
and then-
20 feet high.
Yeah,
But yes,
I wanna go out and look at it again.
yeah, I have to too, because
It's been a couple months.
we had the picture, and it would be all along the side where, you know, the,
All?
to third base, no,
It's a third base.
where the,
why third base?
It's
Third base
first
is.
base.
First base.
It's
I'm
the
sorry,
First base, if anything.
yeah, first base, I'm sorry.
And you're talking another 10 foot, that makes sense. So you go up 10 feet, you make it 20 feet. So this way, if the ball's hit up high, it goes against the net. It doesn't go anywhere, but if you take it down to first base, yeah, that should be plenty.
Yeah, I mean, if.
But
if
can you
there's-
go
if
from the
a little
backstop
girl
to,
hits a ball-
to first base? Is there a post on, by first base that you can do
Well, it's
to
just
the
the end
back?
of, it's just the end of the fence. You would just, that's
Yeah, I
what
think you
his
want to just
theory.
extend it to the end of the fence.
Well, they-
Where, how far down does the fence go?
I mean, as long as you have the fence there, you have
All the
something
way.
to.
So you'd have the fence 20 feet all the way to the,
I don't know.
to
No,
the
I-
outfield?
No, you.
No,
can-
no, no,
The
no,
10-foot, the 10-foot fence ends at third base. Then
That's what I'm
there's-
asking.
That's
That's
what-
First base.
Yeah, after
First
that,
base, yeah.
First
Okay,
base.
and that's what I'm talking,
Yeah,
yes,
you
that's
would-
what I was
that's where it
saying.
would
So
be.
it would go from the backstop, the pole there, to
To
the
first base.
first base foul, to the first base pole that runs down the.
Because then there's a fence outside that to keep from kids from running.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Right.
Yeah,
mhm.
that I wouldn't worry about. I would just
Yeah,
double up.
and, you know, again, if any young person, male or female, is hitting the ball over more than 20 feet in the air past first base, they need to be moved on.
Exactly, but 10 feet, I agree. I mean, even a young kid, if they hit it wrong, the ball, and it goes back, it can go over.
It's gotta go ways though, to get over that fence and then the second fence. Just-
let's take a look at it
Yeah,
again.
but I think just for safety purposes.
Blind
What about
shot of
train,
it,
the water?
that's what we're talking
I
about.
guess the concern, I mean, especially with what's happening with the trains now, with projectiles that are hitting different things. Can you imagine if a ball hits?
So, can we,
Paul would
so,
know.
so Jeff,
Oh,
from a procedural point, yeah, do we have a number on what that might cost?
I think, yes, he gave it to me, $2,500, I
Is that
think.
He got it out of the book,
Yeah.
there's a
Is
book,
that something that needs
a
to be
catalog.
included in
got out.
capital?
And, I mean, it can put it in as buildings and grounds improvements, so that it's general enough, and then, yes, and then it should go in
can
capital.
our guys do it?
Well, actually, if it's gonna be a net, it's not a capital improvement. We'll have to put it in the budget, so, we'll have to put it in buildings and grounds.
Can our guys do it?
Do what?
Extension poles and a net.
I'll have to look.
No, the reason why I'm saying that is if they can, I mean, if they can't, we have to budget then somebody doing it too. Is
No,
that including?
I think that's what we should do.
No, that was just the
I
cost, Ken.
That was just the cost?
Yeah,
Do
just
we have,
material cost.
we're gonna
Yeah,
have.
see, we
like,
need somebody to
engineering
do it.
expenses? Well, I'm serious, like, somebody walks past and it falls on top, and they put in wrong, you know, I'm just saying, I'd rather have an engineer sign off.
I don't
on
think
it.
it's gonna fall, I think, I'm picturing, people are gonna be climbing on it, it's not gonna last, I'm just.
Climb one?
Oh, yeah.
20 feet high?
They're climbing on the ones at Community Park, the ones that are up there,
Are they
stuff,
really?
oh God, yes.
To get
Ever
balls.
seen it? It looks like Sesame Place, I mean, it's a great place for
Yeah.
kids to go.
Probably the balls
We need
get
electric
cut stuck
or
up there, they
tractable,
would climb
uh,
up.
What about the, there we
All right,
go,
and-
water spigot?
What about
It
Woodstock?
sounds like the, you know,
They want that
Mr.
to-
Well,
Well, he wants a whole irrigation
and
system,
we,
I think.
yeah,
Right.
that
I don't
was
think
not
that's possible.
probably
Things are getting a little
happening
No,
yet.
no, I know, exactly, we're funding other parks here, but,
But he did ask for, and I said, I just don't know
This is
whether we're to
Leon.
include this or not, to have some type of water, access there to just hose down the infield. Would we be able to hook up to the, you know, public water, or how, you know, to have, I mean, it's a field that has no water whatsoever, none.
This is getting back to the, and it's not irrigation, but he wants to make sure that they can groom the field before
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, instead of having them walk to the lake, carry buckets, and have the parents pouring buckets of water, it would be. But, I mean, and again, I don't know what it involves, and I don't know where to bring it up to put it in anywhere, or if people are even interested in doing it.
Is that something New Jersey American Water would put, like a spigot for a low spigot or a water fountain?
Yeah,
A
that's a
spigot on the
question.
bottom?
Can we get the water company to do that?
Well, they got charter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want, I mean, usually these things come through the REC to us, or
Okay.
they come from somebody, but this is different, so.
I just wonder like how much infield grooming we have to do for 7 and 8-year-olds to play. I mean, I'm not saying if it needs to be done, I get it. I
But
mean,
what's
I
the
don't know.
difference, let me tell you, what's the difference of 7 to 8 versus 10 to 12? If he's running tournaments, they're all running tournaments, and he does run tournaments there. So it's really doing the same thing as what the community park is, where they're all using the same fields.
Well,
That-
and as I
that's-
recall, they were talking to us too about the field not being safe because it isn't being graded. Kids running around, there's undulating ground, and kids could fall and get hurt.
but if
Wasn't
this
that
should
part
go
of
through
it
the
also?
REC, then maybe we should turn
That's
it
the way
over
I
to them
recall.
before.
Well, you've already brought it, though.
No, it's already here, so, I mean, it's just,
He's saying that's the problem.
usually it goes through the AA, and then the AA submits what they want.
Well, my
rather than
only
individual.
concern is this, we talked about this before them, and if they're gonna use it to grow grass, that water.
I agree.
You know, Public Works was, Jerry was very clear that they're not gonna cut the grass any more than they already do. And there was, and it goes back a couple of years since that park's been done, and it's not about, raising the issue. But I walk by the park while in the middle, during the weekend, somebody's out there on a tractor cutting the grass. And, I don't wanna promote that type of, they're not insured to be out there, they did it on their own, glad, it's nice to see people chip in, but if it's going to be irrigated, if they're gonna grow grass there, it's only gonna get cut when Joey can cut it. That's my concern.
No, I don't think we're considering an irrigation system, if there's a water fountain and a hose, now will they be attaching sprinklers to that hose, or do we?
No, that's, we'll make a
We have to
requirement.
make it known that if we do that, we'll turn the water off.
And do you need to have a water fountain? Or
If we're gonna put a hose there, it would make sense to have a water fountain, I would think, there's nothing there. Although kids bring water bottles.
Yeah, they bring their
all the
water and
time.
their drinks, and they have a little snack stand.
Does Notre Dame have, they had a water fountain, does that work? Isn't there a water fountain in Notre Dame?
At the big field?
I'm trying to think where there's a water fountain.
By the concession stand? Yeah, by the bedroom. Is there or isn't there?
I don't know.
Do you know?
I think there
I
was,
thought there was.
years ago.
Yeah, there used to be. So, I mean, my feeling, is Community Park out here? Yeah, they have a water fountain. I think if Notre Dame has it, I mean, if we're gonna make this Leon like these type of fields, and we're putting the spigot in, I have no problem putting a water fountain also, since our fields that we're making a little bit better, have them all, we do it. I'd say if Notre Dame,
There's
No, no, I'm
water
saying
fountains
Notre
at
Dame's on it.
any of the Timmy Chase fields.
yeah, but that's not, I don't think those fields can, the baseball I'm talking about.
It's not
We
gonna
use
cost
a
any
pump
more
over
than
there.
the
Exactly.
fountain.
I think if we have it in
It's
summer,
the
if we have it, I
library
think Summer Hill
permission.
even has one, if I remember. Doesn't it?
I don't remember one.
No, I don't think so.
We
can
have
see
two
how
other
much it
ones that
costs.
we're
It's
doing,
not-
yeah, I mean, if
I mean,
it
I'm not
doesn't
saying
cost
you're right
much
or-
to add the water fountain, I would have no problem doing it, especially if Notre Dame had it, because it's another thing that they can use. That's no big deal. I mean, if
You
they're.
know, I would,
But I think, Jeff, you're right in the sense that maybe Tyler and I, maybe this went around the wrong way as far as us speaking with, Tom. Maybe Tom has to go, or should this go to the AA, like?
Tom
I
should
might-
have went to the AA, and the AA
Okay.
should have then approached either Joe Perreno or come to Jeff.
Because they're in a better position to advise us on what the priorities are for improving the parks, rather than, individual
Coaches
coaches
come.
coming to us.
So should we take this to Bob Kennedy? Should this be thrown back to Bob Kennedy then?
I don't know that you're gonna get an answer in time for this budget.
Oh, okay.
Well, he did mention that he came to us as a private citizen. We made that clear. He wanted to speak on behalf. So if that's the proper channel, then we push it.
We-
Yeah, but we may not have the time to get
I
it.
mean,
Well,
maybe
maybe
it
you have
doesn't
to
get
wait
done.
here then,
Yeah,
if you
I mean,
think we did it
because there
wrong.
is, and granted, anyone can come to anybody with any suggestions.
Yeah.
Why don't we
It happens
just
all
look
the
into
time.
it first with New Jersey American Water, get some numbers, and we'll go from
And we said it wasn't going in capital anyway, right? It was only
Right.
going-
Well, if you do irrigation, it might.
Oh.
there. We're not gonna do irrigation, right? We're only gonna do a spigot and possibly a water fountain. Does everybody agree?
Yeah.
Is
That
that,
would be
is that what he's looking for?
No, he
No,
wants
no, he
irrigation,
wants
but,
the full
but
thing.
I think
Yeah,
even
he's
the,
lucky to get a little bit right now.
Well, there's other parks, and we're doing Conroe, we're doing
Yeah.
the basketball fields, you prefer, I mean, there's.
Yeah.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
exactly, so
But we can
everyone
only
can
do so
everything.
much, exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm,
We can't give all the baseball,
Well,
everything, we got.
and there's other fields, by the way. Mike could say, well, how about Fawns or Brown Street?
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
So I
but
get
even
it.
in this case, I mean, we
I know.
did make a major investment in Leon.
Yeah,
very-
and that's what I tried telling you too. We already gave you
yes,
$30,000.
$30,000, yes.
So,
I just wanna see the cost of how much it would to put
Yeah, and
a
we
stick
don't
in it,
have
that's
to do
all, I
it.
don't, yeah.
no, I mean, we can do little by little improvements, and then we can start working the other fields too. So, I mean, we just gotta do little by little. We can't just do everything all at one time.
So try to get you a cost estimate.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, hopefully we can get it in time for
And
next
if
week.
not,
If not, we don't, Jeff. If we do what you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so, I think we said okay on
I
the
don't have
acoustic
anything.
tool, and
oh, I did,
you what?
summer help. Do you like,
There's $30,000 in there for summer help.
do you think we need it? Could we use it?
It's there.
We can use it, I mean, we used it last year. The difficulty again is it doesn't resolve, it's not like replacing a man.
Right.
Is that it might open a man up from weeding around here, we'll have one of the summer help do it. But we don't have them operating any,
Did we use it last year?
yes. We didn't use that much. I think Jerry only hired one guy, or he only hired one. But we have enough in there to hire about 3 for 12 weeks.
So we didn't spend it last year.
We didn't spend it all.
We just spent a third of it last year.
I don't think he asked for 30,000 last year. I think he asked for less, it was like the beginning of asking for summer help. He actually, I think last year just put in for summer help and then hired one guy. Because we didn't cut all of the overtime out because we wanted to see how the machines ran. So we had a lot of money left over because we didn't need that kind of overtime. So it was kind of bunched in there.
What else do we have to do tonight? Anything? Are we good?
Go home.
Yeah.
Go home, that's a good
Pretty
idea.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. I'll try to get the answers to the questions. I'll get the answers to the questions you've asked tonight and get them out to you hopefully by Friday so we can discuss them at the next agenda. The next agenda will have other things on it besides budget.
Before you go anywhere,
Let's
Mike.
try to do it before 10:30 here, obviously.
All right, so before we go anywhere,
Painting.
we typically open it up to the public.
Sure.
So let's.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anybody in the public have a question or comment?
Couple, Gregory or 17th grade, couple quick questions, comments. For anything in the budget for surveillance for like the community park, I think you should consider stuff like that, cameras, et cetera.
It's already done.
Anything in the budget for funding the rest of Jake's Place?
For funding Jake's Place?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I could barely hear you.
Question.
Is there anything in the budget for funding the rest of Jake's Place?
There is not.
You don't have to go into it, I'm just
Okay.
for the record. The 8.7 you mentioned for surplus, when is that as of? Is that December 31st? Is there a projection that we'll have at the end of this budget as a surplus?
Not till we complete the budget process.
Okay. Do you expect the collection rate to be below the actual, as it has been in the past?
Do I expect the collection rate to be below?
Yeah.
No, the collection rate's been above.
No, for the collection rate that you used to develop the budget, it's been like 95.2. The actual's coming in at 98.5. You expect that same spread?
That gets discussed when we have the final discussion on the budget. But I would anticipate there would be a spread.
Okay. And any adjustment anticipated for the sewer charges going forward?
No.
So we had the credit that we were talking about that I assume isn't happening, but you're not looking to adjust next year's budget to ratchet down the collections because we know we've been over collecting, right?
That's your terminology, but we have been very fortunate with some of the connection fees, and we had hoped to do the one-time credit,
Right.
but to do, I'm not sure how much I could say, but because of the lawsuit that was brought,
Right.
it was way too much exposure for what we intended to do. The potential loss was much higher than the potential that the residents would benefit, so we decided not to do that. So what our intention is, and that's been, since we did the initial raise when we abolished the sewage authority, was to maintain that rate as long as we possibly could. Right now, it looks like we'll be able to maintain it for, in my mind, a couple of years more. I'm hoping that the 300,000 continues to, means that gets extended maybe another year or two beyond that, if we can do it. I don't know, it may be as much as 10 years without a rate increase. It wasn't, we increased the rates because the rates hadn't been increased in a long time, and the sewage authority was advised prior to the abolishment by the auditors to raise rates that they were not sustainable. We had to do it on an emergency basis, and frankly, the township lent the department $500,000 just to continue to operate. So we've seen the savings that we hoped for.
Right.
And we hope to continue to see that. Right now, the sewer surplus is where it should be, and maybe a little bit more, and maybe we'll going forward use that to continue to fund these projects.
We've done a lot of projects.
We're gonna utilize it for continued improvements.
But I understand, but absent the lawsuit, we would have gotten,
You would
A
have
credit.
gotten $50 back.
which implies that there was extra money.
Right, there was $300,000.
Right.
That was in play, that frankly, from the abolishment forward, we were advocating to do a give back, just to say, we understand that it was, that it might have been a shock when these rates were raised, when
That's
something had to be
understood.
done. So, but what happened was that money was not spent, it was put back in the surplus, it's still there, and will remain there.
But absent the lawsuit, you were gonna give the money back. So nothing's changed except for the lawsuit.
Well, exactly, we can't give the money back, because in order to do it in what we consider to be fair and equitable way, we were exposed to a lawsuit, and
I agree, but then you could figure out an equitable and fair way to give out $300,000.
So the way to do that, the only way to do that based on what the lawsuit was talking about, and I don't know that we
Yeah,
have
be
everything,
careful.
I gotta be careful
Also
what we
what you
say.
say.
Let's just say hypothetically, if we lowered rates, which is, I think is what you're asking us.
Right.
Then we would erode the surplus, and I'm not even sure we're allowed to do that.
You would have by giving out the credit.
So.
What if you lowered the rates by $300,000 of
Well,
collections?
then the next year, we'd have to raise them up, because we'd be eroding at 300,000, and that would be the rate going forward. We'd have to put
So-
the rate back.
You're saying that had you given out the $300,000, you were gonna raise taxes next year?
No, what I'm saying is,
That's just,
this year, if we were to lower the rates
right,
to erode $300,000 worth of surplus
Correct.
away,
right.
then the next year, we would have to adjust the rate so that we weren't eroding another $300,000. So we'd have to, in essence, raise the rate back to where it was. So it would be a one-year rate reduction.
Which is the same as a credit. A one-year credit. So, I mean, you get there the same way. I'm just wondering why not go forward with what you promised in a different manner, give the money back, and then go back to your other rates. What's the difference?
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions? No? No. Okay.
Motion to close?
Let's come out of public. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn?
Carries. I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.